Picture two men the night before a job interview. One lies in bed repeating that everything will go great, trying to force a positive mindset. The other quietly plays out the disaster in his head. The bus is late, he spills coffee on his shirt. The interviewer asks the one question he didn't prepare for. Most people would bet on the optimist to walk in with more confidence. Most people would be wrong. The man who visualized the failure is actually the one who walks in steadier. For years, we've been told that strength means picturing success and keeping the bad thoughts out. We treat anxiety as a flaw to be suppressed, rather than a signal to be used. Telling an anxious mind to stop being anxious is like telling a fire to stop being hot. The energy is already there. If you try to force it down with positive affirmations, you walk in with that energy bottled up and unaddressed. Suppressing fear doesn't eliminate the danger. It simply ensures that when the first thing goes wrong, you are completely unequipped to handle it. If fighting our fear is what actually paralyzes us, then what happens when we stop fighting it? The leaders of the Roman Empire, people dealing with mortal stakes and collapsing borders, didn't try to think positive. They did the opposite. They invited the nightmare in on purpose. They weren't being morbid. They had simply realized that if they didn't give their fear a job, it would eventually give itself one. Seneca observed that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. We lose more sleep over conversations that never happen than over any actual disaster. The dread of the event is almost always heavier than the event itself. Vague dread is unbearable because it has no shape. But the moment you force a fear to become specific, it shrinks into a finite problem. And while we can't fight a fog, we can solve a problem. The Stoics called this practice premeditatio malorum. The premeditation of evils, a deliberate, controlled rehearsal of the things that could go wrong. The teacher Epictetus told his students to visualize the public baths before they left the house. He told them to expect people to splash them, shove them, and steal their things. Because they expected the friction couldn't knock them off balance. Every morning, Marcus Aurelius told himself he would meet people who were ungrateful and dishonest. By scheduling that rudeness into his expectations at dawn, he was able to respond with patience instead of anger. This discipline strips tragedy and chaos of their greatest weapon, the element of surprise. When nothing shocks you, nothing can control you. In the early 1980s, psychologist Julie Norem began studying high achievers during a period when the entire field of psychology was focused on the benefits of optimism. This chart shows what happened when Norem forced anxious overachievers to stay positive. Their performance dropped. Without their usual mental simulation, they fell apart. But when they used a strategy she called defensive pessimism, using anxiety to scan for hazards and prepare, they rose. They didn't feel calm, but they functioned beautifully. The fear was still in the car. They just didn't let it drive. The founders of cognitive behavioral therapy later utilized these same principles. They built the world's most studied psychological treatment on the idea that people are disturbed not by events, but by their judgments about them. Looking straight at the worst-case scenario isn't a sign of weakness. It is a clinical framework for command. This practice has a second, more profound effect. It cures the human tendency to stop seeing what we already have. The Stoics viewed everything we love, our health, our family, our homes, as things borrowed from fortune. They are not owned, they are on loan. Every so often, on purpose, imagine losing it all. Picture the voice of a parent, on. Picture the body that carries you, failing. It sounds morbid until you return to the present and realize they are still here. In that moment, you see them again, as if they were new. This discipline makes you tougher in the face of what could go wrong, and more tender toward what is right in front of you. That is what a grounded person actually looks like. But there is a line. There is a world of difference between this discipline and just lying awake at 3 a.m. Rumination is open-ended and looping. It drops you into cold water and holds your head under, leaving you more frightened than when you started. The Stoic drill drops you in, lets you find the bottom with your feet, and pulls you back out with a plan. One is suffering with extra steps, the other is preparation. The rule is simple. Rehearse the problem, not the panic. Tonight, pick one fear you've been avoiding. Sit with it for 5 minutes. Ask what you would actually do if it happened. map out the tasks, then close the door and go to sleep. Thinking positive is not the brave choice. Looking straight at what could go wrong and walking forward anyway, that is the brave choice. That is command.